Salveta omnes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our continuing coverage of Caesar's Gallic Wars. We are almost to the end of the AP curriculum as far as Caesar is concerned. Just four sections left of the sections from Book 6. We'll do, I think, 16, 17, and 18. I guess five sections. 16, 17, 18 we'll cover this video, and then I think 19 and 20 in the next one. And that'll be it. Maybe I'll do 16 and 17. I don't know. We'll figure out as we go. I never plan these videos. We know that. So, let's just dive in the last videos, we talked about the different classes of the Gauls. We've talked about the plebs, which are basically just chattel for the upper class. And that upper class consists mainly of druids, the kind of religious and legal leaders of the Gauls, and we talked briefly about the knights. They don't get a whole lot, but they're kind of the military leaders. Now we're going to talk a little bit about their kind of religious views, which more or less kind of like devoid of like how the druids control it and just kind of what that entails. So we're picking up in section 16. So, natio est omnis Gallorum ad modum dedita religionibus, adque ob eam causam, qui sunt ad fecti graoribus morbis, quique in proelis periculis quo versantur, alt pro victimis homines immolant, alt se immolaturos vovent, administris quadea sacrificia druidibus utuntur, quod pro vita hominis nisi hominis vita redatur, non possedeorum immortalium numen placare arbitrantur. Publicaque dem generis habent instituta sacrificia. Whew, chunky sentence, but as always, we can tackle it section by section, punctuation by punctuation. So, the first one. Again, Caesar kind of mimics himself from the beginning of Book 1. Right, Galli est omnis in duis partes tres. He kind of did that in section 13. We get kind of the same thing here, right? Natio est omnis Gallorum, etc. So, the entire nation, omnis natio, the entire nation of Gauls is given, is kind of beholden, is, I don't know, focused on, again, religionibus, you could say religion. One of my professors always referred to it as religious scruples, kind of all the things around religion, however you want to define that. So they are given to it ad modum, kind of like to this point, or so much. And for this reason, ob eam causam, those who, we don't really have an antecedent here, but you can definitely supply just those. So those who are affected by gravoribus morbis, by rather severe or rather grave illness, and those who, so quique here is not, it's not quisque, meaning each one. This is just qui plus que. So you could have said et qui if you wanted to. And those who are involved, for Wasantur, those who are involved in battles and dangers, they do a couple of things. Either they immolate, they burn as sacrifice men in the place of victima, in the place of victims, right? English word victim's going to come from this, and we can often translate it as victims, but I believe for Latin, victima tends to relate to sacrificial animals. And so when a Roman hears victima, they're going to think of a cow or a sheep or something, right, for sacrifice. They would not think of a person as a victima. Right, a human is not a victima. A cow is a victima. A sheep is a victima. Maybe a dove or something. And so they burn men in the place of sacrificial animals. Or they vow that they will, they vow that they themselves will emulate men in the place of victims. And they use druids as administrators or as managers or whatever to these sacrifices. Comma. So in the launch present tense, right? They either emulate them, like on the spot, or they vow that they will do it. So perhaps they don't have any men at hand to sacrifice, so they promise the gods that they will. Utuntur is deponent. It's a weird deponent though because it takes the ablative as its direct object, and so druidibus administris is ablative as the object of Utuntur. They use the druids, or they employ the druids as administrators to these sacrifices. So, why? Why would you sacrifice men instead of victima? Because nisi, unless the life of a man is exchanged for a datur, we'll go with exchanged, is exchanged for the life of a man, they judge or they do not judge. You can put non either before posset or arbitrantur. They judge that the power of the immortal gods, or the divinity of the immortal gods, is not able to be placated, to be satisfied. Which makes sense, right? If the gods determine that in this battle, one life needs to be extinguished, if it's the life of a person and that's higher value than the life of a cow or something, well, I'm not gonna exchange a $5 bill for a $10 bill. That would be ridiculous, and so I will exchange a 10 for a 10. Is the sort of idea here. So you can't satisfy the gods to save your life unless you offer up another life in exchange. And they hold or they have these set up sacrifices, these instituted, right? They have these established sacrifices of this sort, eius dem generis, of the sort. They hold it publicly. So, hey, we're about to have a battle. They sacrifice a whole bunch of people, literally people, in exchange for them surviving the battle. So, definitely a bit more barbaric than literally, right? Both by the Roman standard of not being Roman, but also a bit cruder than we might imagine. So, definitely kind of a shocking thing to hear. Now, is this true? Or did this, they do this at some point maybe in the past, or maybe they did it one time in desperation, and Caesar latches onto that and uses it as propaganda to show these Gauls as kind of needing the civilization of Rome. It's impossible to tell. At least as far as I know, it's impossible to tell. So I don't know how many Gallic manuscripts might exist. After all, we learned before that they don't tend to put a lot of stuff down, right? They don't entrust a lot of stuff to letters. So we more or less have what Caesar says. And Caesar might just be prone to propaganda. All right. Alii in mani magnitudinis simulacra habent, quorum contexta minibus membro vivis hominibus complent, quibus sucensis circumventi flamma exanimator homines. You have an image of this in your book. I think there's also a movie related to this, and I played a video game. I think it was Rise, Son of Rome, that actually covered this kind of section as well. So let's Let's see what they're doing here. We're learning a little bit more about these established sacrifices of this sort. Some of them have simulacra, have images, replicas. How else would I describe a simulacrum? Statues? I don't know. They have these replicas with immense size or of immense size, ablative of description. So these are huge simulacra, right? These are going to be these huge statues, of which statues the limbs woven with reeds or woven with reeds or vines or something like this, with its plant material, right? The limbs of these statues, having been woven from vines, they fill these limbs, the arms and legs and whatnot, with vivis omnibus. So membra neuter accusative, object of complaint, vivis omnibus, ablative of means. They fill them by means of live men. And again, you should have an image of this in your textbook. This is, you could also perhaps translate this as wicker. So this is Wicker Man. So they build this huge kind of image of a man out of a flammable material, right, womenibus, and they fill them with live men. So it's a giant like wooden cage. And with which, having been set on fire, I believe this is referring to, I want to say it's the hominibus. I think this actually might be the womenibus here. With which things, or perhaps even the membro, with which things set on fire, the men, having been surrounded by the flame, exanimantur, they are killed, right? They die. We've seen exanimantus to be unconscious or dead. Here's your verb from exanimantus, right? They die, overcome, or surrounded by the flame. So again, they put them in these cages. And again, it's a simulacrum, right? It's designed like a human, and they set it on fire and burn up all these men at once. And again, this is to play. Only a man's life can be substituted for another man's life. I think you get this really interesting sentence here. I like this. I like, as far as this is concerned, this sentence. Supplicia eorum, qui in furto aut in latrocinio aut aliqua noxia sint comprehensi, gratiora dis immortalibus essa arbitrantur. Convenient. Sed cum eis generis copia defecit, etiamat innocentium supplicia descendunt. So, where do I want to start? They believe, right? So arbitrantur, kind of the main verb of the thing here. They judge, they believe, that is, the Gauls believe that the offerings, I think, for Supplicia here, the offerings, that is being used as an offering, not providing an offering, that the offerings of those who have been arrested, comprehensi, or apprehended, seized, those who have been seized in theft, like in the act of theft, or in the act of banditry, latrocinia and furto. I'm not quite sure the difference. I think furto might be like harmless theft, whereas like you break into somebody's house and you like steal something. Latrocinia, I think, might be theft by means of like mugging somebody, or have been apprehended in some other harmful thing, some other noxia, crime, or harmful thing. They believe that the offerings of those people are more pleasing to the immortal gods, which, again, convenient, right, that criminals and sacrificing and killing criminals is more pleasing to the gods. I guess that's one way to deal with overcrowded jail cells. It's, yeah, convenient that. But whenever the resources of these types, or of this type, that is, whenever the volume of guilty people is deficient, right? Whenever it has run low, perhaps for defake it, they even descend, they even perhaps resort to the offerings of innocent men. So, again, I imagine that maybe there's a plague is ravaging this a region of Gaul, or they're going to a big battle, and normally they've got plenty of people in jail that they could sacrifice, but maybe they don't have enough because the plague's just been ongoing, and so maybe if we kill, a couple of innocent people too, that'll help kind of tip the balance. It's a bizarre thing that's going on here, right? It's the sort of stuff that you're like, this really happened? I mean, like, we have, like, I see it in stories, like I said, you hear it in, like, video games, movies, books. The fact that Caesar supposedly is writing history, or at least some sort of history, and it's like, this actually happened, you're like, really? It seems so foreign to me. So, yeah, there you go. So the Gauls supposedly have no problem with human sacrifice in mass quantities. All right, let's talk about the religion in a little bit more general sense. So section 17, perhaps a little bit lighter. Deum maxime mucurium colunt. I'll do a little bit more than that. Huia sunt plurima simulacra. Hunc omnium inventorum artium ferunt. Hunc viarum adque itinerum ducem. Hunc ad quaestis pecuniae mercaturasque habera vim maximum arbitrantur. So, the god they worship the most is Mercury, or they worship, I'll go with worship for colunt, to cherish, to cultivate, to worship. They worship the god Mercury the greatest, or the most. Of this one, that is, of Mercury, there are many images. Simulacra here, right? Images similar to the simulacra. Same word as up here, right? So, likenesses. Ferunt. Let's talk about Ferunt. I think Caesar's done it a couple of times. Definitely worth mentioning again. We'll see it a few times in Virgil as well, if you haven't looked at the Aeneid yet for AP. Ferunt means to bear or carry. It can also mean they say or they believe. The idea is it can be both a physical carrying in your hands, or it can be a mental carrying in your mind. So they believe this one, Mercury, is the inventor, right? Is the creator of all arts, of all skills, of all perhaps techniques, something like that. So they think that Mercury is the inventor of all skills. They believe that this one is the leader of streets and journeys, or of paths and journeys, which this is more or less what Mercury is attributed to in Rome, right? He's a traveler god. They believe, and arbitrantur here, same thing as Ferunt. He's just perhaps reusing the word in case we forgot. They judge this one to have, and perhaps arbitrantur here introducing indirect statement, whereas Ferunt here is kind of a slightly different grammatical idea. So they believe this one has the greatest power, vim maximum, vim power. Oftentimes in the singular, it's more along the lines of violence, but I think it's just just simply force here. They judge that he has the greatest force towards the acquisition of money and towards the towards mercantile endeavors, towards what's the word? What do merchants do? Trade, maybe, just from mercaturas. So he has the greatest force for acquisition of money and for like trade. What mercatores do, right? So my guess is that the Gauls don't call him Mercury. The Gauls probably call him something else. But, your god, this god that is kind of involved with skills, with travel and streets and also money. That sounds like our god Mercury. And so the Romans assume that this is Mercury. Again, the Gauls might call him something entirely different. They call him Galther or something, but they're like, your Galther sounds like our Mercury. Because Mercury would be this, right? Obviously a traveler god, we know. Mercury related to this word, right? Mercantile. So merchants are travelers, right? So travelers, merchants. But also Mercury is a little bit of a trickster god. And so this idea of kind of like skill and creativity could be attributed to him as well. Post hunc Apollinem et Martem et Joem et Minervam. Arbitrantor or whatever, right? Or colon. Just do that sentence. After this one, after him, that is after Mercury, probably repeat colon here, they worship Apollo and Mars and Jove, Jupiter, and Minerva. So, again, we don't have a verb. We, supply a coolant here. So after Mercury. So Mercury is the most, right? But then after him, it's these gods and goddesses that they worship. Again, perhaps different names, but there you go. Dehis eandem fere quam reliquae gentes habent opinionem. Apollinem morbos depellera, Minervam operum ad mortificorum initia tradera, Joem imperium caelestium tenera, Martem Bello regera. So concerning these gods that I just mentioned, they have fere almost the same opinion which other races have. And so, I'm not quite sure who these other races are, right? If they're not the Gauls, does he mean the Romans? Does he mean the Greeks? I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure who the other races are. Does he just mean other tribes of Gauls? The Gauls, for the most part, all have this opinion. They have the opinion that, and so these are all going to be indirect statement, accusatives, and infinitives. As we know with indirect statement, those are all built upon the kind of verb of the head. In this case, it's a noun of the head. They have the opinion that Apollo dispels sickness, right, healer god, that Minerva hands down the beginning of works and crafts, trades, something like that. Perhaps slightly different than Mercury, who is the inventor of all skills. But Minerva is kind of the one who begins and helps you kind of make those manifest. They believe that Jove holds the celestial power. Imperium Caelestium, he holds the power in the sky. And that Mars rules war, controls battles, wars. Which matches up more or less with the Roman gods. And again, are they calling them by the Roman names? Probably not, but the Romans are like, that sounds like our god who does this. Huic cum proleo dimicare constituerunt, ea quae bello caperent plerumque devoent, cum superaverunt animalia capta immolant, reliquasque res in unum locum conferunt. To this one, and I believe that's going to be referring to Mars, he's the most referring to this one. Let's see. I think, again, whenever they have decided to, I don't know, actually. I don't know Demicare. I should know Demicare. Sorry, having to look it up. Whenever they, yeah, to contend in battle. So whenever they've decided to fight, to fight in battle, right? Whenever they've decided to fight in a battle, they, for the most part, or they vow most of the stuff. How do I want to translate? They generally vow those things which they seize in battle. So, or they devote, or they vow, right? So they promise. So when they're going to go into battle, they're like, all right, we're about to go to battle. Mars, we promise that the things which we take in battle, the loot which we capture, most of it will be yours. All right, so they, Plerum again, more than half. Whenever they have been victorious, whenever they have won, they sacrifice Immolant, right? Sacrifice by burning, immolation. They sacrifice captured animals. And they gather, confer, literally cum pharaoh, they bring together, they gather the rest of the stuff, reliquas res, in one spot, into one location. So, they win, they've taken over a town, they gather all the loot, cows and sheep and whatnot, they'll sacrifice. The rest of the loot, jewelry, goods and whatnot, they'll gather in one place. Multis inquietatibus harum reum extructos tumulos locis consecratus conspicare licet. Neque saepe accidit ut neglecta quis pam religione aut capta apud se occultare aut posito toler alderet, gravissimumque re supplicium cum cruciatu constitutum est. So, in many states, multis inquietatibus, it is possible for licet, literally it is permitted, but I think you could just say it is possible that mounds, hills, mounds, piles, built up of these things are able to be seen, or it's possible that they are seen in sacred locations. So this is a general thing, right? You could go into any town or into most towns in Gaul, and you could see, or literally, like, they could be seen. It's passive here, right? Actually, hold on. Conspicare could be deponent. So actually, yeah, it is deponent. Sorry, is permitted. It's possible to see mountains built up of these things in sacred locations. So you go there and you can see somewhere in the town, this is the pile of the loot that is dedicated to Mars. And it does not often happen that someone neglecta religione, ablative absolute, surrounding this certain person, that somebody with religion neglected, or with kind of superstition or whatever, with religion neglected, either, it doesn't often happen that someone either dares to hide the captured stuff at his house, or hide it kind of in his residence or something, or does somebody dare to remove it having been placed. So you would think there's just this pile of loot in the middle of town, right? It doesn't often happen that somebody just goes and either removes it once it's placed into the pile. So, just kind of walk by, grab that cup or that necklace or something as you walk by, or maybe in the middle of the night. So that doesn't often happen, that somebody steals from the pile after it's been placed there. But it also doesn't happen that somebody hides stuff that has been taken, right? So, you're supposed to give 50% of the loot that you capture in battle to this pile, right? Well, some people might try to hide more than what they've than what they're allotted. It doesn't often happen that happens either. So they are very well controlled. There's no security cameras there, but the gods are always watching. And the gravissimumque supplicium, the gravest, the most severe penalty, I guess, for supplicium, offering payment, perhaps. We saw supplicia up here, referring to like offering people as sacrifice. Supplicium here, kind of the same thing, maybe not offering, but like the greatest payment has been set up for this sort of thing, for this matter, that is, hiding or stealing stuff. It's been set up cum cruciatu, the greatest penalty, with torture. Cruciatu. So, yeah, you don't want to skim a little off the top or pocket something as you're walking by. So, there you go. All right. 18 is relatively short. We're going to go ahead and tackle 18 as well. This video will be a little bit longer, but that's okay. It still relates to the religion and the different gods, right? So, human sacrifice, Mercury and Mars and whatnot. And finally, in section 18, Galli se omnes abdite patre prognatos praedicant, id quab druidibus proditum dicunt. The Gauls go all the way down, or actually, you got two verbs. They praedicant and they dicunt. The Gauls declare, praedicant, they declare that they all are descendants. They are all born ab dite patre, from Father Dis. Dis is another word for the god of the underworld. So Pluto, Hades, often referred to as Dis as well. So, the Gauls, they declare that they are descendants, that they are born from Father Dis, or at least descended from Father Dis. And they say that that is this fact, they say that this is taught, maybe for prototum, that this is preached. Literally, it's given forth, right? Pro ditum, that it is declared by the Druids. So the Druids said that they are all descendants of Dis, and the Gauls then declare that that they are descendants of Dis. An important thing to remind us that although we may view the Gauls as somewhat evil based upon what we read in 16, Dis is not Satan, he's not the devil, he's just the god of the underworld. There is no good or evil attributed to him, he is just a god. Alright, and we're going to find out kind of what being the god of the underworld, or being descendants of the god of the underworld, entails, or why they might think that. Ob eam causam, spatia omnis temporis, non numero dierum, sed noctium finiunt. Dies natales, et mensum et anorminitia, sic observant, ut noctem dies subsequatur. So, ob eam causam, on account of this reason, or because of this cause, let me look up. I need to look up Finiunt here. I should have done more preparing, right? I just want to make sure how Finio is being turned. It is transitive. So the Gauls end. They finish, right? They end, or they limit the space of all time, or perhaps even almost count for Finiunt here. They put an end to the spaces of all time, not in the number of days, but in the number of nights. So time, measurements of time, don't end. They don't end a period of time by day, but by night. Which actually, we'll see, is kind of similar to how I think we do it, in modern America. Dies Natalis, birthdays, and the beginnings of months and years, thus they observe them in this way that, so this is a result clause based off of seek. They observe birthdays and the beginnings of months and years in such a way that the day follows the night. Dies here, fifth declension nominative singular, that the day, follows the night. Which is somewhat similar in America, right? Because think about, when does a birthday begin? When does a month start? When does a year begin? Right? When does the day begin? When does a date start? I won't say the day. When does a date start? It starts at midnight, right? It starts at 12 a.m., which is in the nighttime. So perhaps kind of we're showing our Gallic roots. And Gauls is Caesar's general term for the French and kind of the English and whatnot, right? It's kind of everybody that's not German and not Italian, but is in Europe. So we do this, right? Whereas for the Romans, a day would begin the first hour at dawn, right? As the sun comes up, okay, it's a new day. But for the Gauls, it's kind of reversed, and I think that we kind of follow that reasoning in modern timekeeping. In reliquis vitae institutis, hoc fere ab reliquis differunt, quod suos libros nisicum adola verunt, ut munus militiae sustenere passent, palam adse adira non patiuntur, filiumque puerilitate in publico inconspectu patris ad sistra turpe ducunt. It's weird. I'm not sure who gives you the divisions. I feel like 18 could have been grouped with 17, and then this should be the beginning of 19, but we'll use this as a segue into 19, which will be the next video. So in the remaining kind of customs of life, institutions, customs, habits of life, they differ in this way from most of the rest, from almost the others. Fere here, again, meaning almost or kind of, so perhaps not all of the others, but most of the other tribes, I believe. The remaining... Do we have... I think just the others, and thinking about like tribes up above. In this way, that. So quote here, I think used as a relative pronoun with hoc as in they differ in this thing. That. But you could translate it as because here. Really, it's the same word. They differ that. Where's my verb? That patiuntur. They do not allow, they do not suffer. They do not allow their children, probably sons in particular, masculine, they do not allow their sons to approach them, to come up to them openly or in public until they have grown up, until they have reached adolescence. You get a cum clause here plus the indicative, right? So whenever they have grown up as the object of nisi, unless such a time as whenever they have grown up. Unless they have grown up to the point that, I think kind of a result clause, that they are able to sustain the duties of the military, the duties of the army. So, the Gauls don't allow their sons to approach them in public unless, whenever they have grown up to the point that they are able to, the duties, I would translate from munus here. Munus can be a gift, it can be a burden or a duty or something like that. So I think it's a duty here. So, yeah, until you can fight in battle, you cannot approach me in public. And ducunt is similar to Ferent up above, they believe that that how do I want to do this? They consider this indirect statement. To be disgraceful. They believe that a son, standing near, or kind of just standing, or that a son of a puerile age, of a boyish age. They believe that the son of a boyish age, standing in the sight of his father in public, is disgraceful. Toxic masculinity right here. I am. I don't know why. I don't know why. Heaven forbid a father show any sort of affection towards their son. I guess we find out where we get it from, and it's worth noting, right? Because the Romans clearly must not have this viewpoint. They may have their own, perhaps ill-advised beliefs about children and their role in society with relation to their fathers and whatnot, but clearly Caesar thinks that this is worth mentioning and is weird. So there you go. And that, so now we start talking a little bit about the family, and that is what 19 and 20 will cover. So that will do it for this video. It's long enough. Our last video, or the next video, will be 19 and 20, and that'll finish off Caesar. So very exciting. Look forward to that. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Hit me up in class or in email. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Later.